What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to this week's Bourbon of the Week. Now, in all honesty, I like to stay honest with you guys. I did a review of this Sam Houston 15, right? That's what we're doing, Sam Houston 15 year. And when I sat down to, do all the editing, went back through, spilled a little, that's all right. Went back through, was drinking another glass of this while I was doing the editing, and I just decided that I was wrong. I was wrong about this bottle, so we're going to revisit it. We're going to start from scratch. We're going to start from the beginning here. Sam Houston, 15 year. This is the PA-1. But everybody knows before we get started on all of that, time for the traditional sip, part 2. It's pretty good. So here we are, this is Sam Houston 15. If you haven't been to the channel before, my name's Chris, this is Bourbon of the Week. I review all the bourbons in my collection behind me, and we rank them on 3 different categories: price, taste, drinkability. This is our normal reviews, we haven't done one for a while. And here we have the Sam Houston 15. This is a new release here in Pennsylvania, and that's exactly what it is, released here in Pennsylvania because it's batch number PA-1. Now, the confusing thing about this bottle for me is I like to go on the website, I like to do a little bit of research before I sit down and review these bottles. And for batch 6, it's called batch 6, they don't have a PA-1 on their website. Now batch 5 has a PA-1, but that was a 14 year, and batch 4 I think was their 12 year, and that didn't have a PA. I'm just confused as to why PA-1 is not on their website. So basically, I was confused from the beginning about kind of the distribution process on Sam Houston, but I started to figure it out. Basically, they released different batches in different states. So they have a KY-1 or a PA-1 or an NY for New York-2. So you get different releases in different states, and they're not all the same. So PA-1 isn't going to taste the same as KY-1 or NY-1 or AL-2. They're all going to be different. And the crazy part about this is these are batch size. The great part is it's all in the bottle here. Bottle 142 out of 504. So there's only 504 bottles that taste like this. That's going to make a review tough because I might get a bottle that I love. You might get a bottle that you don't because it's a different bottle. Right here on the side, it says batch size 3 barrels. So it's either 2 barrels or 3 barrels. Now, obviously, it can't be 1 barrel because that would be a single barrel. But if you're talking about a small batch bourbon, that's about as small as you can get. Now, we've talked about small batch before on the channel. They can be up to like 50, 100 barrels. They could still consider it a small batch. So for this to be 3 barrels, that's a small batch bourbon. This is barreled on 4 of 06 and bottled on 15 years and 6 months later. So it has to be at least 15 years old for it to say 15 years old on it, and it's 15 years and 6 months. The char level is number 4, and obviously we know it's an American white oak. And the mash bill on this comes in at 74% corn, 18% rye, and 8% malted barley. So it is a high rye mash bill. Now, for all intensive purposes, we believe this comes out of Barton Distillery. We think that they sourced this from Barton Distillery. It does say bottled by Three Springs Bottling Company, which, as we know, is in Bowling Green, Kentucky. It says it right here. Everything is on this bottle, which makes it fantastic. But let's get into this. Let's get into drinkability on this. This is 103 proof, 51.5% alcohol. So for drinkability on this, my first glass, it wasn't good. It was very hard to drink. For 103 proof, I thought it sipped kind of, it had a little bit of a burn to it for 103 proof. And then it opened up, right? I had a glass, I had 2 glasses. I opened the bottle, I let it sit, I let it breathe, and it really doesn't sip that bad. For 103 proof, I think it sips pretty easy. I don't think it sips over its proof, but I also wouldn't say it sips too far under the proof. I would probably guess this was like a bottle to mom in like that 100 proof range. So they're not far off with being 103 proof. Now, do I want it to sip like a 90 proof? Maybe. Is that going to take away from some of the flavor profiles that we're going to get into this? Absolutely. If they did anything to like water this down to make it, now they wouldn't water it down and not make it taste that way because that would take away from the proof as well. But you get the point. This does sip like a 100 proof bourbon, but I can't knock it because it is a 100 proof bourbon, 103 to be exact. So for drinkability on this, I'm going to give it a pretty good score. I'm going to give it like an 8.5 when it comes to drinkability on this. But please, please, please let this open up. This isn't like one of those you can just pop the top, open it, and sip on it, and you're going to be like, dang, there's no ethanol kick on this at all. Because it does have one at first, but if you let this breathe just a little bit, you'll be impressed. 8.5 is where we're going to put it. Now this is where I really messed up on my last video. Talking about taste on this is tough because again, I might have a bottle that you don't have, or you might have a different 3 barrels that were selected to make your bottles, or 2 barrels, whatever yours happens to be. But the taste on this is very complex. And at first I didn't think it was. You know, I talked to a couple of people, we sat down, we drank this together, and we all got one thing off the rip, and that's going to be oak. Well, you're talking about a 15-year-old bourbon. The only other 15-year-old bourbon that I have to compare is the Knob Creek 15. I also have the Elijah Craig 18-year, but that's 90 proof compared to, this is 100 proof, so we're at least closer in that 100 proof range. All I get on that is oak as well. This definitely starts out with a lot of oak, but again, once this opens up, I started to pick up flavor profiles that I didn't get originally. I was sipping this, I was doing the editing. We talked about like sugar cookie. So you get sugar cookie on this. There's some type of sweetness on the front of this. I almost get like a plum taste on mine here, as well as like a cherry and like a almost like a medicinal cherry note that's like hidden down deep down in there. Like we said Robitussin. Now I keep saying we because this one was just so different to me that I couldn't quite put my finger on it. So I reached out to people. I said, what are you getting on this? What are the flavor profiles that you're getting? And this is what we came up with. Sugar cookie, Robitussin, medicinal cherry. The oak obviously is there. Maybe like a little bit of a not honey, more like a maple, but like that viscosity of maple. It's so complex. There's so much going on here that I gave it a bad score to start, but then I also thought, you know, I've come this far in my bourbon journey to realize that just because I don't enjoy it, just because it's not my favorite flavor profile, doesn't mean it's not a good flavor profile. If you're looking for a very complex, very oaky, very deep flavored 15-year-old bourbon, this is going to be one for you. Now, don't go out and buy a 15-year-old bourbon if you don't want a little bit of age behind it. And that's kind of a lesson I learned with the Knob Creek 15. But then again, as I sat down and started to sip this more, I thought, this isn't that bad. I could actually enjoy this a little bit more than I enjoy more oaky, aged bourbons before. And then at the end of the day, I also feel like, now they would probably tell me on this bottle, it almost tastes like it has a finish to this bottle, some type of wine finish. It just, that sweetness on the front really gives me this finished flavor profile that obviously isn't in here, but that's the kind of complexity that I'm getting with this. So the fact that they can do that with 3 barrels of bourbon, it's impressive to me. And it's something that I haven't seen before. And it's just another way that Sam Houston here keeps making me question exactly what they're doing here, because distribution's one thing, flavor profile's another. It's just so much going on in this glass. I'm going to give it a pretty good score on taste. I'm going to give this like an 8.4 when it comes to taste on this. Keep it right up in that 8.4, 8.5 range, because I doubted it first, but now that I'm drinking more of it, I don't hate it. And last but certainly not least, that's going to get us into price on this, and this comes in at $130. That's a tough ask for a bottle of bourbon, but again, I like to kind of go through what I'm getting, what is the value behind this bottle of bourbon. Number one, it's only 504 bottles like this. So you're only getting, this is definitely a limited release. Now the question is, does it deserve to be a limited release? Well, that's something that you can answer yourself. I love the bottle. First of all, beautiful bottle look. We'll go over that. Also, Sam Houston, the name behind it, we're going to go over that in our Bourbon Bomb of the Week. But you're getting a 15-year-old bourbon. You're getting over 100 proof on this. You're getting a Barton, well, it says Bardstown, Kentucky here, but you're getting a Barton distillery product. They make 1792 as well. A very good bourbon to me. I think it's actually very much underrated. And you're also getting the people involved in picking these barrels. So you're talking about a small batch bourbon. It doesn't get much smaller than 3 barrels. The people involved in this were not only people already involved in the bourbon community, but they had like YouTubers come in and help pick this. So the people that are part of the bourbon community got to be in selecting these barrels for these bottles, which just makes a cool story overall. So when you put all of that together, $130 is definitely a tough ask, but at the end of the day, tastes delicious, limited release, 15-year-old bottle of bourbon. What else do you really want from a bottle of bourbon to not command that price? Now again, obviously there's other bourbons that are doing similar things and aren't $130, but I think it's a little overpriced. I will say that. I think $130 is a lot. We were talking about like that when I went to buy this. I called my brother-in-law. I said, should I get it? He goes, how much is it? I said, I didn't even look yet. And I was thinking maybe like $109, right? $109 seems to be that like Yellowstone, somewhere in that range, maybe even $120. but 130 is pushing the envelope on this bottle of bourbon. So I'm going to drop this a little bit on my price score, and I'm going to give it like a 7.6 when it comes to price on this, just because I do think it's especially if they're going to put out multiple batches. I got to go get a Kentucky, I got to go get a New York, all just to try the same bottle of bourbon, but yet a different bottle of bourbon. So to put up that kind of money for all of these bottles, it's just not going to be able to happen. So 7.6 is where I'm going to put this price-wise. So I know it's been a while, but let's send it over to this week's Bourbon Bomb of the Week and learn a little bit about Sam Houston and the name on this label. Let's do this. So here's the deal. We're going to go over the name Sam Houston. Now, if you don't know who he is, he was born in Virginia in 1793. He ran away from his family at a young age. Again, the best part about this, the story's right on the bottle here. So he had a little teenage meltdown, right? And he ran away. But unlike most of us when we ran away as children, he actually joined the Cherokee tribe. And it was the Hiwassee River. I want to say I'm saying that right. And he actually became one of the tribe members' sons. He was basically adopted into this tribe, stayed with them, learned a bunch of stuff from them, and then he ended up coming back. He ended up becoming a Democratic senator. He was actually a soldier as well as a general in war, and he helped with the annexation of Texas and winning a Mexican war battle. So he's an American patriot and an American hero. It says it right here. First line on this, Sam's Houston life was that of a true legend and patriot. So that's all well and good. He's this great guy. He helps take Texas freedom away from Mexico and all of that. He becomes this politician, this senator, all kinds of stuff. But my question, and this week's Bourbon Bomb question of the week, which might be a new thing that we do, is why does that have anything to do with this bottle? So what made Sam Houston stand out amongst all the people in American history? Why is that connected to this bottle? Because everything else about this bottle screams Kentucky. It's Western Spirits beverage, which is from Kentucky. It's Kentucky when it comes to the bottling that we already talked about, Three Springs Bottling. This is Barton Distillery, which is in Bardstown, Kentucky. So all of these things point to Kentucky. So I'm just confused why they have Sam Houston's name attached to this. So if anybody knows that, if anybody can answer that for me, I would love to know. That way I can drop more information for you guys, the viewers, because quite frankly, I don't know. But let's send it back over and see what our score is on this bottle. So this bottle is going to score an 8.17, which is crazy because that's not far off from where I had it before, although I definitely upped my price. I upped all of them. You know, it was right in the low 7 or the mid 7s to high 7s before. But again, I just didn't think I gave it the respect that I think it deserves after having another glass or two of this. So an 8.17, 8.16666666 repeating, we'll call it 8.17, definitely bumps it up a little bit from where I had it before. And that's, I think, where this bottle deserves to fall. You know, it's a great bottle. It's a great drinking experience. Not my favorite when it comes to the flavor profile, but I understand the hype behind this. The question is, will I buy another one? And that's tough because the next bottle is not going to taste like this bottle. It's not like Wild Turkey 101 where I can buy a bottle, be like, damn, I love this, and then continue to buy that bottle because I love it every time. The hard thing about these batch releases, and they do it the same thing with Booker's. I've got one Booker's, the Granny's batch, 2020-01 or 03 or whatever it is. And I love that bottle, but I just can't go out and spend another $85, $90, whatever they bumped the price up to now, on all 4 of those each year. It's just too much. There's too many other bourbons to try. And while I would love to be able to have all of them, I just can't afford to do that. So that's where we're going to put this, 8.17, and that's where we're going to leave it for today. But make sure you check me out on Instagram at Bourbon of the Week. Every Tuesday at 4 p.m. we drop an image of the bourbon that we're going to review. You can go on and try and guess my score. If you guess the closest, I'll give you a shout out on the channel, as well as enter you in a monthly drawing to win some cool prizes, including custom Glencairns. We've got t-shirts, we've got hoodies, all kinds of stuff. Also, make sure you click that subscribe button down below. We just passed our 1,000 subscriber mark. We're going to do a 1,000 subscriber giveaway pretty soon. I want to make sure we do it live, and I want to make sure we do it right. So click that subscribe button down below. If you want to check me out on Patreon, we do all kinds of cool stuff for the Patreons on there. We have a Discord that we talk in as well, just for Patreons, as well as for everybody else. We have a chat for you on there as well. So scroll down, check the links out down below. In the meantime, don't drink and drive, drink responsibly, and stay healthy, stay happy, stay drinking. Cheers, guys. It's good.